Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first SAMPS book club. And we're starting in no small way at all. As our first book club, we have the recognized author of 12 books, futurist and keynote speaker, and my friend Mark Schaefer with us. Welcome, Mark.
Happy
Hey.
to be here. I'm happy to be here.
Just a
So,
reminder to our audience while I introduce Mark a little bit more formally and we discuss his book, How AI Changes Your Customers. I'd like to invite everyone to submit your questions in the Q&A box. It would be lovely if you'd read the book, but if you haven't, no worries. I'm sure there are lots of really relevant questions on your mind. So, in this book, Mark has a clear message for marketers and sales folks navigating the AI era. And I quote, AI isn't your enemy, indifference is. The future of marketing won't be won by those who master every tool. It will be won by those who remember who the tools are for. So, in this first ever SAMS book club, Mark will explore with us what AI is truly changing, not just in tools, but in expectations. For life science sales and marketing professionals, the opportunity is not to out automate competitors, but to out care them, out listen them, and out human them. And this conversation isn't about replacing human judgment, it's about sharpening it. And what I appreciate most about this book is that Mark doesn't catastrophize things, he illuminates. This book isn't about fear, it's about understanding the shifts so that all of us in marketing and sales can navigate them strategically. So, as a quick summary, AI isn't just changing how we work, it's changing who our customers are becoming. And in the opening paragraph of the book, Mark says, throughout history, disruption to the status quo, such as pandemics, we know all about that, wars, or economic recessions, can either sink a business or elevate it to new heights. Every disruption creates a seam, a moment where the fabric of culture, business, or belief rips just wide enough for an innovator to crawl through and create something new. We might be living in the ultimate seam. From there, he gets more uncomfortable, in my opinion, when AI handles more of the routine work, what happens to human confidence, decision making, and our sense of purpose. And when people start forming real connections with their bots, which is wild to me, what does that mean for the human relationships, the fundamentals of who we are as sales and marketers that we've built our entire commercial model on? But he doesn't leave it there. The final chapter is called Probability is Not Destiny. The future isn't fixed, and that's exactly where this conversation starts. So, this book is a map, and we're about to get help from the ultimate map maker. Hey, Mark.
ah, thank you. Thank you for reading those quotes. Those are pretty good.
If you do say so yourself.
Well, it's funny because I haven't spent a lot of time with the book itself since I finished it. I've been busy promoting it and going on to other things. So before this book club, I opened it up and kind of perused it again. And I mean, it really is a good book. It's a fun book. It's an easy book to read. It's a very, very short book. And yeah, so thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, great. So maybe I can kick it off with a couple of questions to help warm up our audience. So, life sciences has always sold on scientific credibility and relationship trust. You know, the foundation of that scientific credibility is the data. If AI is now pre-filtering credibility before any human interactions happen, does that actually advantage or threaten the companies with the strongest scientific heritage?
Well, one of the ground rules of this discussion is that there should be no hard questions. So you've already broken all the ground rules, Jasmine. Um, so I guess what I would start with is that a brand is trust, period. And whenever that trust gets threatened or broken, then the business and the brand would be expected to be in a rapid decline. And we see that happen all the time, where people are cutting corners, or they're not treating their people right, or they do something wrong with the environment, or they fudge the numbers. Um, we're in an interesting time where we probably have listeners from all around the world, but at least in America, I mean, science is under attack. And I mean, I don't think you know this about me, but I actually started as a chemistry major in college. I love science. I have a very scientific mind. I'm curious about, physics and chemistry and biology and everything. And so I appreciate science and I appreciate facts. And I think that if there's any, I hope anyway, that will come out of it in America, and that the facts of science will be a good foundation for trust. I think where it's going to get interesting with AI is that the trust in AI is increasing. And not just for small decisions, but for big decisions. My wife and I have been turning to AI for medical inquiries. Sometimes it's hard to get an opinion from a doctor. It's time consuming to try to get two opinions or three opinions or to look at the alternatives. And so I think the interesting thing that might be happening in the scientific community is not so much that the trust in your facts and your data is going down, but you've got a competitor now where it's so easy to turn to AI compared to a scientific journal.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. A lot of the what once was gated information in the sciences is now open source, and so it's much more easily available.
Mhm. And it's a one of the things that I talk about in the book is this idea of gating content, which might be there might be legal requirements around that, or there might be emotional requirements around that. And if the reason that we're gating content is emotional because we've done the work and we're proud and we don't want AI to scrape our content and use it, I think that's something I recommend that we kind of have to get over. And let me give you an example why. I recently got a new customer from ChatGPT, and this lady hired me to do some consulting work. I said, "Well, how did you find me?" She said, "Well, I went to ChatGPT and I asked AI to find me the top 10 digital marketers in the world. And you were in the list. And I went to your website and I liked what I saw, so I decided to hire you." Now, here is a little secret. I'm not one of the top 10 digital marketers in the world. I can name 10 people in my close circle of friends that are smarter than me. There's probably half the people, at least in this room, are smarter than me. But why was I on this list? Because I show up. I have more than 4,000 blogs on my website. I am active helping people, answering questions on social media. I had a podcast for 13 years. I never missed an episode. I've written 12 books, which have been absorbed by AI. You know, intellectually, emotionally, that's not fair. That's actually illegal, but they did it, and there's not much I can do to fight it. Although I am part of that class action suit by our Anthropic, and apparently I am getting some money for each of my books that they absorbed. But that wasn't my doing. But the point is, you have a choice. You can be part of the system or you can fight against the system. And I think the advantage that we have to have is think about, you mentioned when you were introducing me this idea that, AI is becoming the decision maker. In the book, I say, somewhat whimsically, but also true, that we're all in the diaper business. I have a new grandson. He goes through a lot of diapers. He's the end user, but he's not the decision maker. We have to market to mom and dad. Well, today, increasingly, AI is the decision maker, and we have to market to AI. And that means being present, creating content and ideas and quotes and podcasts and blogs that AI could see and absorb and put into the system. And AI will refer and recommend those who are showing up versus those who are, behind a gate.
Right. I think this is super important for this audience specifically to hear because we are infamous for gating our materials, many of which are very hard fought materials under the guise of, these are our early leads, they're warm leads. And I think we need to really take your message to heart that it's all about discoverability. So ungating that information is really going to be important to that discoverability and to that decision making. What else? What are two other things that commercial teams should stop doing immediately and start doing?
Well, first of all, I want to be very humble here because I think it's a case by case basis. I mean, there's no cookie cutter answer for everybody, but there are some general things that are happening in terms of how let's take our traditional marketing and our content and our SEO and how we're trying to build our reputation and an emotional meaning behind our brand. How does that fit in this AI world? So first, I want to say at a very, very high level that the traditional marketing you're doing still works. It still works and it's still important. And traditional search is still really important. I'm sure everyone here has started to use AI for, more inquiries, for more search, but Google search is still growing. So it's still really important. Now, a lot of those answers that you're getting from Google are AI at the top of the header, right? So, even traditional search is moving toward AI. But a lot of the things that you have been doing all along are still going to benefit you for SEO today and AI tomorrow. So at a high level, be comforted that your good work is still being rewarded. Now, if you kind of go below a level below that, there are some differences. SEO is pretty dependent on links. So how many people are linking to you? That's kind of a vote in the world of Google SEO. It's a validation that this is good, worthy content. In the AI world, nobody cares about the links. AI doesn't look at the links. AI prefers uh, references in context, in traditional media, in academic papers, in maybe showing up in uh, blog posts and webinars and podcasts. So it's almost like AI is favoring PR. I think in some ways we're kind of in the golden age of PR because AI puts higher validation on that compared to links. There's also a question about the type of content. Google rewards thorough, well-researched content written for humans. They actually have sort of a checklist of how they grade superior content, and the quality and meeting a certain industry standard is part of their checklist. AI doesn't care. AI is a bot. It doesn't care if it's written well. It doesn't care if it's written for humans. It just wants data. Lots and lots of data and facts. And this is one of the reasons you'll see more websites now, number one, have more FAQs. The FAQs really feed AI because it's very clear. It's telling the bots, this is who we are. This is what we do. Make it crystal clear. You also see at the top of a lot of traditional media, there'll be a summary. Again, that's kind of for AI. Maybe it helps humans too, but it's very clear, and it says this is this is what it's about. This is what we're saying. Now, there's one other point that I want to talk about that I think is very, very important, and it's not really being discussed in a lot of the mainstream marketing discussions. And it's this: the importance, the incredible importance of brand as an override to AI. So in the book, I tell this little story about how I used AI to plan a trip to Paris. And it told me where to go and when to go and what metro lines to take. And it was great. But I also said, well, look, I am going to fly Delta Airlines. I am going to stay in this certain hotel because I like Delta. It's my favorite airline. So my connection to the brand overrides AI. It doesn't matter what AI says. I'm going to fly Delta. So brand loyalty, brand connection is more important than ever. And this is my own little, I'll get on my soapbox here for a moment. I think in many ways, brand marketing is being overlooked so much today because we've become intoxicated and maybe over indexed on performance marketing like Google ads, Facebook ads, and SEO. And it's great because it's like dollars in, dollars out. We can measure it. But in some ways, we've kind of lost the heart and soul of what marketing is about. And that is creating customers. And one of the ways to do that is to create meaning, which is like a whole nother topic about how important I think meaning is today for brands and for individuals. So branding, meaning, word of mouth, right? Because if AI recommends something, you'll consider it. If your friend tells you, you'll do it. So there are overrides that we need to consider in this new marketing reality as well.
Yeah, that soapbox is so important to hear, especially in our sector where, you name your chief marketing officer or VP of marketing at just about any life science tools company I've worked with. And you hear the same thing. Yeah, brand's okay. Yeah, we understand that, but there's no easy way to measure it. So we're going all in for performance marketing.
Right.
And I think it's worth reiterating why it's important at very least to have both, but and not ignore the brand marketing.
So I'll give everyone here a superpower. If you're in a situation where your boss doesn't understand brand marketing, here's a little story that I tell. I had it in one of my books, and I can't remember which one, but it's a very effective story, I think. And it's this story. So in America, at an American football game, we have this weird tradition. if there's a big victory, the players sneak up behind the coach at the end of the game and they dump a big bucket of Gatorade over their head. It's called the Gatorade bath. I know it sounds weird. I think it only occurs in America. Now, their big competitor is Powerade. Powerade is owned by Coca-Cola. Last year, during the college football playoffs, one of the games was sponsored by Powerade. So Gatorade is known for its orange buckets. Powerade has a blue bucket, and it says Powerade on the side. The players are sneaking up to the coach. They've got the big blue bucket ready to go. And here's what the announcers say. Here comes the Gatorade bath. Even when it says Powerade, Gatorade is so connected to performance and sports, they couldn't say the words. Gatorade has 80% market share of an $8 billion sports drink market. Absolutely incredible. They charge 25% more in the grocery aisle. And their meaning, their brand is so powerful and their sales is so strong. Powerade, the distant number two, what do they have to do? Coupons, end of vow displays, Facebook ads, gimmicks. Gatorade doesn't have to do any of that stuff because of their brand. The brand is the only thing they really have that differentiates them. Powerade can copy their colors, their formulas, their flavors. They can copy everything, but the only thing they have is the brand. That's the meaning. Now, here's the question: what's the ROI of the Gatorade bath?
Mm.
Does it sell more Gatorade? Yes, it does. It's very hard to measure, but that doesn't mean that you don't do it. And I'm here to tell you, in the AI era, branding is more important than ever.
Yeah, I think the other connection to the brand is that at some point AI is making recommendations. I don't know if we're near that yet in our sector, but certainly in our private lives, it's making recommendations and it's making those recommendations based on brand values and what it gleans from people's websites on the brand.
Yeah, yeah. Well, 100%. It's not giving you a choice. It's giving you like the answer. And so it's going to be really hard to be part of the answer. And so the other option is these overrides. Is just, not depending on these algorithms.
Right.
And that means brand and it means word of mouth. Both of those are hard to measure.
Right, right, right. So, like in many industries, also in the life sciences, people buy from people. How do we maintain the human connection in a world where so much is automated or gate kept by AI, or are the scientists that buy from us are behind a device all the time?
Well, uh, I think this connection, this human meaning is really the last thing we have left. For us as individuals, it's our personal brand. As for a company, it's the brand that's known to the public. We live in a world, if you think about it, where the economic value of intelligence is is zero or near zero. So none of us are going to be smarter than AI. And our organizations have been built on intelligence. Our reward system is built on intelligence. I get a promotion if I learn more and I take classes and get a new degree, so I get a promotion. I've acquired more intelligence, but I'm never going to be more intelligent than AI. Our skills are under threat. And this is where a lot of people kind of dismiss AI because you see a lot of press about the stupid things that AI does. But I can tell you as an AI, as a writer and as a creative person, I mean, AI is really good and it's getting better and better and better. So our skill sets really are less important than they were even 2 or 3 years ago. So economic value of intelligence, zero. Skill set value, in decline. The last thing we have is meaning. What do we mean to people? And I tell this story. I think it's a very powerful one. I tell this in the personal branding class that I teach. The most One of the most depressing moments of my professional career was the day ChatGPT came out. I had just finished writing a book that's up here, belonging to the brand. It's about brand communities. Just finished writing it. Took me 2 years to write this book. I was exhausted from this effort, physically, mentally, psychologically exhausted. Here comes ChatGPT. First thing I do, write an essay on this aspect of brand community in the voice of Mark Schaefer. And it does it in 3 seconds. And I could have put that thing right in the book. And to me, this journey, this exhaustion that I felt, it's my meaning. I mean, I was tired, but I couldn't wait for people to see that book. It's going to help people. It's going to unleash ideas. It's going to start whole new business ideas. And what is my place in the world? Well, the next week, I called up this friend of mine, Shelley Palmer. Shelley is a very famous tech analyst. I said, "Have you tried ChatGPT?" He said, "I did. It's terrifying." He said, "I have blogged nearly every day of my life for 15 years. I asked it to write a blog post for me on the special topic in my voice, and it did a perfect job in 3 seconds. I am 80% replaced." Now, on the surface, that does sound terrifying. But the more interesting question is, what's the 20%? And that is your meaning. That is your personal brand. Shelley has done the work. He's shown up. He's blogged almost every day for 15 years. He is known. He is trusted. He is beloved. And no matter what happens in this AI world, people will always turn to human beings, human relationships, authorities, experts, founders, technicians to help us navigate our future, this confusing world of deep fakes and misinformation. So, I mean, who knows how this is all going to play out? Nobody really knows how it's going to play out. But the one thing I know, the one thing I am sure of is that if we establish meaning with others, if we establish meaning with an audience, a community, a group of customers, that will persist no matter what happens in an AI world.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I mean, I think a part of this book, I'm holding open chapter 3, confidence and agency when the bots do it all. And part of the flip side to meaning is how we've started to outsource our confidence to AI. So yeah, that's another rabbit hole in and of itself. You said that human connection becomes important because AI can't replace human connection. That's part of the meaning thing we're just talking about.
Mhm.
Yet we're hearing stories of people making emotional connections to AI, having AI girlfriends, boyfriends, and just friends in general for emotional support. How do we differentiate between human versus AI relationships? And what's the value of someone over distance for human versus AI?
Well, one of the things I say in the book is I had this very wise mentor and teacher, and one time he said to me, there's no such thing as a weakness, only an overdone strength. So if you're confident, that's a strength. When it's overdone, it becomes arrogance. It's the same with AI. AI used well, used judiciously, used with discernment and context can change your life, can change your world. And if you have a relationship with a bot in context and you use discernment, the research is showing that AI certainly can have a positive impact in certain types of therapy. And we live in a world where many people are lonely and isolated and depressed. It's hard to find a therapist. They're all booked up and they're very expensive. And if some lonely people can turn to AI and just get some ideas of maybe how to get through the day, that's healthy. But when they become sort of immersed in that world and they lose sight of reality and they think that this bot loves them, it's an illusion. It's a math formula. There's nothing about it that's real. In fact, I kind of take a pretty strong stand in the book and encourage people to remember that when we see this illusion of empathy, it's a business case. It's a business manipulation because they want you to stay on these platforms. They want you to use these platforms. They need those numbers to get more funding. Eventually, they need those eyeballs to show you advertising, which is what is happening with ChatGPT right now. So, I mean, it's an illusion and it's dangerous and it's harmful and it's a manipulation. So, I think some people, some vulnerable people, are going to, go down that hole. Unfortunately, I think it's really up to the AI companies to step in and put some boundaries and protections around that. And in some cases, they're starting to do it. Not nearly enough, but it really, in some ways, comes down to the individual psychology. Is it going to be, a strength or an overdone strength?
Mm.
Are you going to be able to have discernment to say, wow, this is helping me learn, or this is just giving me the answers? And if you're using AI to learn and you're building that kind of relationship, you'll gain wisdom. And if you're taking a shortcut and just, offloading your cognition to AI, you're going to wither. You're going to wither in society.
Yeah, so I want to pull on that thread a little bit more on the two parts of the balance, the critical thinking versus cognitive offloading. And what is our role in these scales if you're in sales or marketing?
Wow, that's a it's a very, very important question. Called one, two. And I address this forthrightly in the book, realizing that most people want to avoid the work. They want to avoid research. They want to avoid reading. They want to avoid instructions. They just want it done. They just want the answer. And so even though we might kind of roll our eyes and say, "Are you kidding me?" Most This is how most of our customers are going to want to be served in the future. Now, closely aligned with this is something you mentioned a few minutes ago, this idea of your meaning and your agency, giving up your agency. And another important point I make in this book, that as people turn more cognition over to AI. If there's a way you can make them feel part of the process instead of AI just making the decision, that can be a powerful emotional connection. And it might even be like one little example that I think is cool is in America, we have these do-it-yourself home centers called Home Depot. And every weekend, they have classes for mom and dad to attend with their children to learn how to make things together. You know, how to paint and how to build and how to hammer and how all these things work. And in the long run, that's going to benefit Home Depot, but it's also creating usefulness and agency in their customers and their children. And I think that's kind of a cool example in a world where we might feel like we're losing agency. This is a brand that's creating agency. And so I think the most important thing about this book, it's not prescriptive, but nobody's talking about this. I wrote the book because everybody's talking about prompts and prompt engineering and integration and reworking workflows, and nobody is talking about the psychology. Humans are being rewired in real time. It's not tomorrow, it's not science fiction. We probably see it happening in our own families. And this truth is incredibly important for sales and marketing to understand that our customers are being permanently psychologically rewired. That is the point of the book. It's not necessarily, there's some ideas in there about, okay, kind of like, okay, if we know this to be true, what are some ways that we can respond? But the most important point of the book is just to know this is going on and start those conversations. And if you can think about, my customers are changing, my customers are being rewired. And if you can start thinking about those things and addressing those things, you're going to be so far ahead of your competitors because they're still talking about prompt engineering.
Right. Which leads me to my last question. Um, Assuming you're right about where all of this is heading, what does a successful life sciences commercial team look like in 5 years from now? And what's the skill or capability that almost nobody is building for it right now?
There are four foundational human-centered marketing activities going into the future. A lot of marketing. I mean, if you really, I mean, a lot of people say, "Oh, you're in marketing, you must do ads." I mean, that's a small part of it. Most marketing is research and analysis and pattern recognition and strategy. And the fact of the matter is, AI is going to creep into a lot of those areas. I think for the marketing team, and I think 5 years probably is a good time frame for this. I think there is going to be job displacement. I don't think it's going to be in the next 1 or 2 years. The technology might be there, but corporate culture isn't there. I've been around long enough to know, massive change like this takes time. But I think in the 5 year time frame, we need to be looking at four different human-based strategies. First one I already mentioned. We talked a little bit about this idea of the personal brand. Increasingly, the personal brand is the brand, especially for life science companies, something like maybe a pharmaceutical company or anything that has to do with medicine and healthcare, where trust is important. We may not know what to trust. We may not trust a website or a logo or even AI, but we trust a person. And increasingly, the personal brand is the brand. And if we know Trust in businesses and brands and advertising is going down, down, down every year. It's gone down 15 years in a row, actually 16 now. But we trust each other. Shouldn't we be looking at redeploying some of our marketing resources into building up the personal brands of the leaders in our companies? That's number one. Number two is community, brand communities. This is 100% human. Someone asked me a question the other day. What is the role of AI in brand communities? I don't know. I mean, maybe it can help with some administrative things. You know, Jasmine and I are in a community called Rise of marketers around the world. We use AI to summarize discussions and put it in a newsletter at the end of the week. But it's not going to touch the essence of the community.
The vibe, it doesn't get you the vibe.
No, never, never. So this is completely human. So that's number two. Number three is experiences. And this is a really overlooked area because we're well, let me just tell you this little story. This uh, young man wrote an essay one time. I did a guest lecture at Indiana University, and this guy wrote an essay and he said, what I'm really afraid of about my future is that my generation has no shared experiences. When I listened to my mom and dad, they had to save their money for a record album. And then all their friends would come over to the house because they had the record album. And they'd listen to it and they'd sing the words and they'd listen to it over and over again. And then, they'd have pizza just to listen to music. To go to a movie, you needed a car. So you piled all your friends into the car and you went to the movie, and then that probably ended up with pizza too. And today, human beings, not just young people, but human beings can experience the entire world alone through their earbuds. They can listen to all their music, watch all their movies, TV shows, podcasts, everything alone. And that is the experience of many people today. Now, if you start watching the news, there's a backlash. Young people are finding new ways to gather. Board games are coming back. Book clubs are coming back. Getting together at a pub and watching a movie together is a thing like right now in New York. So, this is something companies can do. We can bring people together. And I mean, this is a big, big topic. I get into this in my book, Audacious, mostly. But it creates this this thing called collective effervescence. It's this contagion of joy that you only feel when you're with other people. And I challenge people in this book, what would it look like if your marketing strategy is add more awe, add more joy, right? In a couple of weeks, Jasmine's coming to my marketing retreat. I've never advertised my marketing retreat. My goal is to add more awe, more opportunities to connect people in meaningful ways so they feel this, this contagion of joy. And if I add more awe, people are going to walk away and say, wow, I can't wait to go back. I can't wait to tell others that my marketing strategy is add more awe. Fourth one is what I call transcendent content. And what I mean by this is AI is actually creating most of the content on the web today. So, how do we compete with that? I wrote a blog post a couple of weeks ago talking about there's this AI bot that can create music like Bruce Springsteen. It's indistinguishable. But I only care about the boss. I've loved Bruce Springsteen since I was 19 years old. I will pay money. I will travel far to go see him in concert because he means something to me. And the reason he means something to me is because his songs are an interpretation of the human experience. That's what art is. So AI is going to keep going, but we're still going to have our favorite authors, our favorite artists, our favorite musicians, and our favorite bloggers, and our favorite podcasters, and our favorite YouTubers, because it gets back to that word again. They mean something to us. There's this deep emotional human connection. And so the this is another thing that sounds weird, but I truly believe this is true. For our content to succeed and transcend the AI slop, it must approach the level of art. And you might be thinking, I'm no artist. But let me give you an example from my own life to show it doesn't have to be, the Mona Lisa. I had this experience where in a period of about 10 days, I did a workshop at Procter& Gamble, arguably the greatest marketing company in the world, and McKinsey, the greatest consulting company, my favorite company. I did 5 hours of talks at McKinsey. This is my Mount Everest company. The end of the day, I was exhausted. I was on the 64th floor of the World Trade Center in New York, and I watched the sun setting down on Manhattan after this great day, this great accomplishment, and I felt depressed because I felt like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine anything that would happen in my career from now on that would make me go, oh wow. I was at the top of the mountain and everything looked like downhill from there. And I debated back and forth. Should I write a blog post about this? Will I seem like a jerk if I write a blog post? Oh, this guy, he's so successful. He feels depressed. Well, whenever I feel afraid of doing something, I do it. And so that was my signal. I was afraid to do it, so I did it. I wrote this blog post, and it had more comments than any blog post I've probably written in the last 5 years. Why? Because it was an interpretation of a human experience. It was art. That is something AI can never do. That is content that transcends the slop. Always will, always has. And so, how do we add meaning to our content? How do we add our stories to the content? How do we create something only we can create? Stories only we can tell. That is transcendent content. And that's the fourth pillar of where marketing will be 5 years from now. It's where it is now, I think.
I was hoping you would also add an element of nostalgia in there. And what
Yeah,
I
that's a subgenre, maybe.
okay, all right.
I don't think that's for everybody. I think the four things I talked about probably are universally relevant, I would say. But yeah, I mean, uh, we're in this time of it's not just a period of crisis. It's a period of crises, and it's hard for a lot of people to live right now, especially young people. And so we see this trend about turning back toward nostalgia, and I think there's a place for that. I don't know if it works for everybody. That might be a stretch. If everybody was doing it, we'd probably be sick of it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But certainly from the transcendent content and the experiences, I think that's very, very relevant to this sector. And I'll remind folks, back in the day, we used to have user meetings. There used to be user meetings after the big conferences, after PitCon, after the American Association of Cancer Research. There would be independent user meetings where that's exactly where you'd have that buzz in the room where people are sharing experiences on, this worked for me, this didn't. I wish I had this button on the software. That was pure gold.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's a very deep insight, and it really is a symptom of a lot of things when we begin to abdicate to AI and take shortcuts. I recently wrote a blog post about how we could really be threatening ourselves if we rely on AI for research. It's the same thing, is that, well, you can get an 80% or 85% good answer and say, oh my gosh, we can save so much money on our research. But if you do that, your competitors are going to have the same research as you. And it's going out and meeting people at events, at conferences, at lunches, at dinners, getting out there and really learning and asking questions. That's where you get the insight that turns to competitive advantage.
Yeah. Well, Mark, thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing your insights and your wisdom. And if folks want to get in touch with you, what's the best way they can do that?
Well, it's really easy. You don't have to remember my name, let alone how to spell it. You just have to remember businesses grow. It's pretty easy to remember businesses grow. That's my website. You can find, we talked about this book today, How AI Changes Your Customers. You can find all my books there. You can find my blog, my social media connections. And I would love for people to, maybe connect with me on LinkedIn and say hello.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And just as a closer, a reminder to folks, our next webinar is on March 24th with Elliot Rayner, and he is going to talk to us about the science of storytelling. And then in April, on April 19th, we have our famous SAMPS Awards celebration, and that will be taking place at the Rustic Rooftop in San Diego. All of this information is on samps.org. There's my shameless plug. So I please invite everybody to go check there for our upcoming events. Thanks again, Mark.
Awesome. Thank you. It was great questions that made me think, and I always love that. So thank you for being so well prepared, Jasmine.
Absolutely. All right. See you soon. Bye.